Yeah, we've the most cash we've ever found was like 250 grand one time.
Bruh. Wait, so if you're interviewing someone to be a crime scene cleaner, how are you supposed to know if they're cut out for the job or not?
You're not a good problem solver. You don't really have what it takes to be a lead tech.
But what problems do crime scene cleaners even need to solve?
We see needles all the time, and then occasionally we'll find grenades. But what really shocked me was a bazooka. And we called the family and said, hey, this is the step we should take. It had to be the worst one. This one was like in a hallway next to 2 other bedrooms, and the wall on the other side had a built-in fish tank. It spread across all 3 entrances, so we're removing 3 door jambs. The fun part, 3 different types of
This is the story of Nathan Todd, CEO and founder of Florida Emergency Cleaning, one of Florida's top-rated crime scene cleaning companies. And he has one of the most incredible origin stories of this industry that I have ever seen. In this episode, we're going to talk about how Nathan started his crime scene cleaning business, some of the early challenges he had when first starting out. We're also going to go over some of the crazy war stories he's had since starting this business, as well as some practical tips and advice for getting a head start in this industry. But before we get into that, if you guys could do me a huge solid right now and hit the subscribe button right below this video, that would mean everything to me. Thanks. Nathan, thank you so much for being on the show today. First question we have from the audience is, who showed you the ropes of biohazard cleanup? How'd you get started in this industry?
Yeah, so the biohazard was funny. I didn't think that I could ever do it. I had heard about it at a cleaning convention, because again, I was exploring all different types of cleaning. And I'd heard about it, thought, wow, that's cool. But not for me. I almost fainted walking onto a blood bus. Like, I just saw the needles that were just these massive needles, drawing, and I was like, nope. If that's what bio is, I'm good. Not for me. But then I met a guy. I did some hoarding cleanups, way before I got into it officially. And I met a guy at a convention, another guy, and he wanted me to quote this job. I didn't know that he did biohazard at the time. It was more of like a deep clean. And then as we were there, he was kind of messing with me, and I'm like smelling something was just off. And I'm like, hey, John, like, what's that smell? And he's like, oh, someone died right where you're standing. I'm like, whoa, okay. I took a step back, and I looked in his eyes. I could tell he was messing with me, but someone had died right there. That's when I realized, oh, he does biohazard cleaning. So anyway, we knocked the job out of the park. We did a great job deep cleaning the place. And then we had a good relationship. He paid well. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll see if I can get some more work from this guy. And so COVID came. We started doing tons of disinfecting work. And then, that's who people called. They didn't know who to turn to for disinfecting. And so we grew by about 10 times that year, what we were expecting to do. Like from one year to the next, we grew by about 10x. And then, I knew that COVID stuff was going to be short term. So, but I couldn't manage the business I'd had and the business I was doing now. I couldn't do both. And so I had to sell all, what I'd worked for the last 7 years. I sold that to a friend of mine, and I just dove headlong into that COVID and disinfecting. And then I thought, well, what's next? I don't know how long this is going on for. So I just kept working with John, and we got into more hoarding cleanouts, and we started doing the hazmat cleanups. We got into hazardous waste. And it all kind of went from there. So,
dang, dude. So at this point, you've already ran a successful business for over 7 years. It's kind of like your baby up until this point. What helped you muster up the courage to sell that business, something you've done really well at, to go headfirst into the biohazard cleanup? That seems like it would take some guts.
Yeah, that was scary. I'm not gonna lie. I like experimenting. I always wanted to find. I really enjoyed what I was doing, and I did understand it. And I had like this renewed passion and energy and this new plan. But really, at the end of the day, I just did math, and I was like, okay, I am currently, we had ups and downs, but that year we were probably going to do a few $100,000 that year, and I was like, as a 20-something-year-old kid, that felt like a lot, But we ended up doing more in a week than we were doing in a month. And I was like, I don't know how long this is going to last. I personally was not as worried about COVID, but I knew that people wanted it cleaned. I knew that they needed it cleaned so people would go back into their stores. So I'm like, well, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. But and I just realized that, like, if it lasts for 2 months, that's more than I make in a year. I will find something else to do. But I just realized that it was just too much. I couldn't manage both businesses. And I was like, oh, you know what? Time for a change. I can bless a friend of mine with this business that I had. And yeah, it was definitely a leap of faith, but I just felt like it was I felt like it had some potential. So that's why I jumped.
Dude, yeah, right on. I love it. Yeah. I mean, if you see the potential and you've got the vision and the plan to execute that vision, like 100%, you got to take those chances as they come up to you. Now, taking a step back here, you'd mentioned previously that your sister was murdered, frankly, quite brutally. And my question for you, Nathan, is how did the murder of your sister affect you growing up, and how does it affect your business today, considering you interact with tons of people every week who have gone through similar trauma?
The sister thing never like that has a huge impact day to day, but that wasn't actually the reason why I switched. Like there's some really good things that came out of that. One thing is I can relate to a lot of my clients. You know, it's hard losing a loved one. It's really hard when you feel like it shouldn't have happened. You know, we were really close. We had the same birthday. We're 11 years apart, but we were like two peas in a pod. We She was my closest. I'm one of eight, and we were the closest two. I felt like out of any of the siblings. It was just we just had a special bond, and so it was really hard when you've got someone that like you don't feel like it was their time, you know. And she had a daughter, and so I understand the grief. I understand the pain of losing someone. So that's really helped me to empathize with my clients and to be there for them and help them know that I'm not just looking to do a job. I feel their pain. I empathize with them. So there's that helped. And then the hoarding. I also grew up in a hoarding home, and so I can also empathize with my clients that are going through, the kids of a hoarder or even the hoarder. I understand the hoarders. Some people they see a hoarder and they just judge and they don't understand it. They're just like, this is crazy. Like, yeah, it might be a little crazy, but there's like one of four reasons why they're doing that, you know? So
I mean, yeah, you're 100% right. Like when it comes to hoarding type behaviors and situations, like most people don't wake up one day and decide, "Hey, I'm going to start hoarding out my entire house and live in squalor." Like people don't wake up and make that decision one day. Like it's usually a trauma response to something that went horribly wrong in their life that they had no control over. And hoarding is just one of the symptoms of that experience that they had as a way of gaining control, right? So I don't know, the fact that you have that experience that you have, that you're able to relate to the clients you serve, it just speaks volumes into why your company has been so successful in the Florida market, because you truly understand the pain and the grief that your clientele have gone through. Now, Nathan, one of the questions I've really wanted to ask you is, in the article written about your sister, you go on the record publicly announcing that you forgave the murderer. I want to know how you were able to get into that mindset, to be able to forgive someone who's horribly, horribly wronged you and your family. How did you get to that point of forgiveness? And also, like, why? Like, what's the point of even doing
yeah,
that?
so it can be really hard. I mean, you go through a lot of emotions from the get go. One thing, I wasn't raised in an average home. Just having eight siblings means there's probably some craziness there. But no, there was abuse in the home. It was a broken home. It was so I've already dealt with a good amount of trauma up to this point. And at the end of the day, I don't feel like it was all me. Like there's a saying that goes, bitterness is the poison you drink, hoping to kill someone else. And I had been taught that early on, and it's my faith background, I think, that helped me the most. So, my faith is in Jesus ultimately. Like I know that we're all in my view, I think we're all sinners and we all deserve grace, and we've all horribly messed up. Obviously, I've not gone around murdering people, but in God's eyes, any sin is enough sin to separate you. So that's how I feel about it. And so it's hard to forgive someone that's wronged you pretty seriously. But I know that like I'm also like sinful. I've also done wrong. And then what's interesting too is back to my childhood. My dad was wronged severely in the whole situation, in the divorce and everything. He was wrong just time after time after time after time. And I got to watch this man that was a believer just be wrong repeatedly. And he used to always tell me, surrender your rights. Surrender your rights. And he probably said that to me 1,000+ times growing up. And I just wanted justice, you know? And so between hearing the surrendering your rights from my dad, someone who's living it out, and I had some people in my life that were good, strong believers, and they really loved the Lord, and they they just taught me early on that bitterness is a poison you drink hoping to kill someone else. So I'm like, what's it gonna do? When you hold on to resentment or anger, you've got to like step back from the situation, drop the emotion, and think, okay, is it going to help me to be angry? And no, it's not. Only going to hurt you. And so, whereas if we step back and let it go, we can use it to heal. So it's already happened. You can't change the past, but what you can do is you can change the outcome it's gonna have on you and others. If you can choose to forgive and use that story for good, then Trisha's death wasn't for naught. There's lots of good that can come from it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that is a phenomenal perspective to have on something that was so horribly done to you. But it seems like this perspective, and I've never heard that saying before, bitterness is the poison you drink trying to kill others. I've never heard it kind of explained to me in that sense, but it does make sense, right? Because when you fail to accept reality for as it is, you get stuck in this maze, and it makes it very difficult to move on. And it sounds like this perspective at least has been able to help lighten the burden on you, and you're able to move on and create a beautiful business that helps tons of people in need. Even though it was a horrific, terrible thing that happened, you can still have a profound impact on other people, other survivors of trauma, and, use it for good, right? But yeah, no, thanks for sharing that with me and my audience today. Changing gears here a little bit, what are some of the craziest things you found while cleaning up crime scenes and hoarder homes since you started this business?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen jobs that were just completely filled. I mean, we're talking floor to ceiling and the garage and everything else, and all they have is space to basically army crawl like through mountains of trash. It's so like as far as like volume goes, I mean, those jobs can. We're taking trash out of this one home in Tampa for 5 days. It was 5 days of just you literally can hardly open the door.
Yeah.
It's things just like falling on you, and you've got to carefully. Some situations are different. Some families like get rid of everything. Sometimes you have to sort through that. That one that I was talking about, they did need some sorting. We found like 20 or 30 different guitars and all that mess that were actually pretty valuable. We found a couple antique cars, an old Mazda and an old Honda that were pretty valuable. I couldn't even see them. Some old scooters and dirt bikes and things too. And then the other, I mean, we see needles all the time. It's scary how often we see needles. I think that surprises us. It surprised me a lot. Like looking back, I didn't expect to see as many as we did. I was in Titusville a couple weeks ago. They had a septic backup underneath his home, and the plumbers were under there working on stuff, and they saw a needle. And they're like, "Oh, we're done." So I got called that night, and I showed up to Titusville and started crawling out of that house looking for needles, just scouring every square inch at midnight, with these bright lights underneath there, just crawling around in a hazmat suit with needle-proof gloves and just spending hours and hours. There's septic water puddled up still, and I found a few needles. I was removing other sharps as well that I saw. One of the wildest jobs I've ever seen was we found tons of guns. Like that's a very common occurrence as a gun or two. And then occasionally we'll find grenades. But what really shocked me was a bazooka. I was not expecting to find a bazooka. Like we were seeing, I remember I was talking with the guys and they were uncovering, a bunch of ammo and posters in World War II. Like, you see the signs of like, oh, this guy's probably got a pretty cool gun collection. They did not expect to find a bazooka. Like, what? How do you even own one of these things? I didn't think it was legal.
Bruh, how do you end up with the bazooka at your property? Like, where do you even get one of those?
They must have smuggled it in after the war, dude. It looked like a World War II bazooka. I was like, this is insane. This is probably not supposed to be here. So we stop what we were doing when we find explosives, and we called the family and say, hey, this is the step we should take. We really need a bomb squad out here. They've got to approve it because it's their stuff. Like, we can't just make that call for them. But I'm not sending my guys back in that job until a bomb squad shows up. So if they want to go in and risk their life, you great. That's your call. But I'm not going in there until bomb squad clears. So yeah, we've the most cash we've ever found was like 250 grand one time. It's very rare, just to be clear. That's like a that's very rare. It's usually like a grand or two. And then another surprising thing was one of our longest decomps was like a year and a half. We were just super surprised how long everything took. It had to be the worst one. You know, sometimes if people were to die in a home, like how they died or where they died, it's easier to clean it just because of the type of flooring or what have you. This one was like in a hallway next to two other bedrooms, and the wall on the other side had a built-in fish tank. So it spread across all three entrances. So we're removing three door jams, and then the fun part, three different types of flooring. So there was like a wood floor, and then over top of another wood floor, and then over top of a Miami-Dade pine. Which, if you know anything about Florida construction, Miami-Dade pine is you can't put a nail gun through that thing. It's so strong, and it was off the ground. It was on blocks, and so or posts. So the AC ran underneath, and so we had to remove all that wood. We had to remove those three things: the fish tank, the wall. We had to go into the tile. Oh, actually, four. The bathroom was tiled, so we got through tile as well. And then we also had to remove the AC ductwork underneath, as well as a bunch of sand that had collected stuff as the body decomposed and fluid stripped through. So I think those are the wildest, shocking top four that I've done.
That's nuts, man. I mean, I feel like where you live, you're experiencing the true embodiment of Florida man every single day. You know what I'm saying? Like, we see some pretty crazy stuff in San Diego from time to time. Like, this one person just jumped off a high-rise building with a cat strapped to her back. We had another person that was left decomposing for, I think, around 6 weeks. 6 weeks, the body was left there, about a 400-pound man. You can just use your imagination for the rest. There were so many freaking fluids that we had to clean up that went through so many layers of the house. But anyway, one of the questions I get asked a ton on this channel is, what are some of the traits or skills people should have in order to become crime scene cleaners? Like, when you're hiring individuals for your company, what are you looking for?
Well, there's a very specific skill and a trait that I look for. The most important skill is to be a problem solver. We do a variety of different restoration type things and disinfecting, and there's a lot of similarity in the different fields, but everything is different. Every situation has something unique, and if you're not a good problem solver and you need every situation written out in front of you, you don't really have what it takes to be a lead tech. I mean, you could be a great helper, potentially, but if you're ever going to have your own hazmat business, or if you want to be trusted on a job by yourself or to be the lead, you have got to be a problem solver that can just step away from the situation, not get overwhelmed, and think, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. What makes the most sense based off all of my previous experience? Be able to think that's how you need to be. You have to have that trait, and that skill set. As far as trait, you have to be trustworthy. I mean, your clients really rely on you. I mean, they likely have never been through this before. A lot of them, I hear it all the time. I'm really trusting you guys. I've never been through this before. And why can they trust us? Because we've got like hundreds of good reviews that all have positive things, nothing bad about us. Yet, hopefully nothing at all. That's hard. There's always someone that's hard to deal with, but right now we've got nothing bad about us online. But they have to be able to trust you, because they can't get into the home because there's biohazard in there, or they can't clean all the mess because it's just too much. And again, they need to trust us, whether we find a Rolex 200,000 or a bazooka, but we do the right thing.
Right.
People need to know that your team can be 100% trusted. They need to hear it in your voice. They need to see it in your face when you meet them. You just got to be trustworthy.
Yeah.
So,
Sweet. I mean, yeah, totally agree. Like, you have to have that sense of trust with the clients you serve because, I mean, you're literally going in on one of the most embarrassing moments of their life or one of the most traumatic moments of their life. And they need to feel assured that you're going to be able to take care of their needs in a compassionate, non judgmental way to get the project complete because everyone deserves that fresh start, you know. And a big hurdle a lot of people face is not being able to trust the people that are serving them in such a deep, intimate manner, right? So you've clearly been able to do that quite well in the Florida market. So thank you so much for doing what you do. Thank you so much for jumping on this call and sharing a bit about your story. And yeah, until we meet next time. Thank you, Nathan.
thank you so much, Jake. A pleasure as always. So, thank you again.